Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today with a Bethesda news update. Bethesda has officially responded to the Creation Club complaints. It's time to see if they are listening closely and plan to make any changes. The following information is coming from a Polygon article which cites the same interview that we discovered Bethesda is going to be announcing another game this year. I will have the link to this article in the description down below. This article highlights the main quotes from the interview, starting with, "You have to understand that one of the reasons that this is not paid mods is that when they're working for us, it's a job," Hines said during the interview. "They're not getting paid only if the stuff sells, they're getting paid like an external contractor all along the way." Now, while we're on this topic, I want to highlight one thing, and it's that we did know about this information. There was a bit of ruckus within the community when we found out that Bethesda was taking 100% of the profits from Creation Club sales, and people thought that this wasn't right. And I'm not defending Bethesda on this behalf, but they did come out during their FAQ for the announcement of Creation Club and say, yes, just like our own game developers, creators are paid for their work and start receiving payment as soon as their proposal is accepted and through development milestones. Furthermore, this is not just Bethesda. I actually contacted someone who works independently in the games industry as a freelance worker, which is exactly what these modders in the Creation Club are doing. That person was Chris Avalone. Now, for those of you who watch the podcast, you already know this information, but I know not everyone gets around to listening that deep. So allow me to show you guys what information he presented me with. I contacted him via Twitter saying, "Hey Chris, sorry to randomly bother you, but I have a quick question about independent contracting in the games industry that I feel only you could answer for me. Would love to quickly chat about it if you find some free time." And he says, "Sure, Matty, how can I help?" I say, "Thanks. Feel free to tell me if the question is something you can't answer because it has to do with payment, and I know some people are private about that, but considering you do freelance work, I thought you'd be best to answer this. When it comes to independent contracting in the games industry, is payment based off hitting milestones or how many sales the title has? And does it differ based off what kind of work you do on the game, writing, programming, art, etc.?" Chris says it can be both, but at the very least and most often it's just milestones. Royalties are rare in the video game industry and often not a lot of money. It does depend on the discipline. Usually artists and programmers make the most, designers, QA, production make lower amounts. Furthermore, I say, "Interesting, thanks. I'm just trying to understand this process a bit more with a lot of rumors circling with Bethesda's Creation Club. Seems like a lot of assumptions are going on, so I wanted to ask someone who had experience with freelance work." Chris says, "There are some projects that allow writers rates by hour or by word. Word is the worst way to pay a writer, in my opinion. It just encourages people to write more, which in games isn't the best thing. I do know only a few indie projects where the payment is solely based on the sales. I only know one example. And everyone contributes for free in the hopes of a payout at the end, and that can be a long wait." And then he also says, "If I have any more questions, just ask." So what I'm clarifying here, not in Bethesda's defense, but more so to inform everyone that this is common practice in the games industry. The modders are being paid the same exact way that anyone working freelance in the industry does. And based off what Chris said, royalties not being the best way to get paid, and it's usually the least amount, hearing that modders are getting paid via contracts and not based off Creation Club sales, especially with how much we are boycotting it, does sound good to me that modders are at least getting their money. But I don't work in the games industry. I don't know the rates, I don't know the payment, I don't know the financial situation of these modders and people and their own interpretation of that. So quite honestly, I can't give a very informative opinion on this one. Moving deeper into the interview though, the risk is removed for Creation Club contractors because they are getting paid and treated like external developers working alongside us, Hines says. They want to go do mods in their free time. Well, they still can because this is a job and that's mods, and the two just aren't the same. So Hines is really trying to separate these two in the financial department, at least, saying if you want to work on mods, make those as well as Creation Club content, you can go ahead and do so. So at least it's not binding them to one program or the other. And I think some of the people inside the Creation Club program are still going to drift towards the CC because of the fact that they get paid for it. Sadly, even the best mods don't get too many donations when they really deserve it. So that's why we're seeing such a big tear in our community here. There was all the same concern, by the way, when we said we were doing mods on Bethesda.net. He said, referencing when the company added a mod database natively through its own platform. And what was the big outcry? Oh, they're trying to shut down Nexus and everything else. Did that actually happen? Are you having trouble finding mods on Nexus? Is there a shortage of those? No, people can continue to do whatever the hell they want. It's modding, play what you want. want, create what you want, go nuts. And that was the final quote in the interview, and the most telling of Bethesda's exact stance on this. We didn't hear anything about them wanting to change anything. We didn't hear anything about saying, okay, we understand you're mad. No, they told us, go do what you want. And this solidifies exactly what I was believing Bethesda is approaching the system as, is the why not? Why not do it, right? They're taking advantage of a small section of the player base of both Fallout 4 and Skyrim who don't have access to good mods and think that this is the best they can get, and earning money off of that. Yes, for example, PS4 players still can access mods, but are they garbage? Yes, not because of the modders, but because external assets aren't allowed. But where are they allowed through? Oh, that's right, Creation Club. And whether the external assets thing is Sony's fault or Bethesda's fault, I really don't care about at this point in time, because this program clearly presents much more of an issue to the community. It's tearing everyone apart. People are mad, but there was no addressing of the prices. There was no talk of change. It just seemed like they said, if you don't want it, don't buy it. And I do like Bethesda presenting options, but when one option is absolutely awful, of course we're going to take the free option. And like I said, Bethesda is more than likely just looking at this saying, okay, let's increase our bottom line right here with this small section of the player base. Okay, let's look at it this way. Fallout 4 and Skyrim both sold about over 20 million copies. Now, I don't know how many of the same people own both games, but point being, that's a lot of players. Let's say a very small chunk of that player base, 60,000, bought $5 worth of Creation Club credits, which I think is kind of feasible. Bethesda would be earning $300,000. Boom, there you go. That's a lot of money, and that is from a very, very small fraction of a large player base. Not that all 20 million people who own the game didn't trade it in, didn't refund it on Steam, didn't uninstall it, don't bother playing it anymore, don't plug it in. I'm not saying all of them are active, but Bethesda is reaching out to a large amount of people, and that's exactly why they're not canning this program. There is so much money to be made, and it's right underneath everyone's noses. And that's why Bethesda didn't talk about change, they didn't talk about pricing or anything. They just said, go do whatever you want, and tried to act like they're providing options, because they're making a lot of money off of this potentially. And so the disappointment with the consumer choices by Bethesda continues onwards, but I have to say, man, this is what happens when you have to be PR for really shitty ideas. It's just an awful position to be in many ways, and I don't envy Pete Hines. I'm not sure how much he played into the decision of making the Creation Club, but I do know for a fact he has to promote these ideas and try to make them sound good, and it's near impossible. Anyway, that'll do it for me, folks. I'm looking forward to seeing your thoughts on this in the comments down below. I'm sure it's going to be a real positive place. Other than that, be sure to follow me on Twitter, like me on Facebook. Those links are in the description down below, along with my Patreon. Do consider supporting that, as it fuels all the content we create here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.